Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's Grid Talk. It's August, so yeah, you should all be enjoying holidays, and looking after the kids. But for this session is the Playbook investment, and what we wanted to do is just how do you go about building the investment case for your Playbook project? So I'm just going to go through a few things with everyone. So for those that are new to GRIDtalk, we recognize what we're doing at MethodGrid is slightly different in terms of introducing playbooks into business. So we just want to share best practice and knowledge about that approach and about how you go about uplifting capability within your organization. And we run them monthly. For those that are new to Livestorm, you can interact with the buttons on the bottom on the right hand side, which sort of questions and I think the chat function as well. Please use that to sort of raise questions and chat and interact. Remember, it is GRIDtalk, and we do encourage kind of two-way conversation on these events, and there will be time at the end of the session for questions, but if you have a question, I'll try and pick it up as we go through the session and respond to it live. Whilst I've got your attention, just what we're going to do next month, and this has come out from a few clients and a few projects that we're working on, is the need for an agile playbook, which is, okay, well, how do we build playbooks using MethodGrid to support agile adoption? How do you get teams to follow it more consistently, but also improve collaboration? And I think probably the focus of the session is how do you get better collaboration between like the change delivery project management function that's trying to deliver projects and an IT function that wants to work in an agile way. How do you go about trying to create an integrated approach for that? And it's likely that there won't just be one agile playbook. There'll probably be a series of playbooks. But again, we really want to get feedback and input into that session from our clients and people that are interested in the topic. For those that are new to MethodGrid or know nothing about MethodGrid, what we're about is helping teams improve how they deliver projects and services, and we do that through connecting knowledge, experience, and technology. And our vision is to build the world's leading AI-empowered knowledge and project management platform, but that is underpinned by experts in how to codify services to uplift capability. We have some fantastic clients. We have some originally founding clients as well, with the likes, and a lot of our focus is obviously in the AEC sector and renewables, and a few national infrastructure clients as well. We also have a number of P3M consulting organizations as well. That's about us. For those that don't know me, I think most of you do, but I'm Pip Morpeth, and I'm the head of professional services for MethodGrid. Okay. So this series, like I said earlier, what we recognized was that the playbook approach, which I'll come on to and explain in a bit more detail, it challenges the conventional thinking about how knowledge process delivery and training is integrated together. And what we wanted to do was design a series of webinars and resources that help you understand that shift and help you on the journey towards a more integrated approach about how you integrate knowledge delivery process and learning. Obviously, process to playbook was the one that we did last month, and I think Tom will put the links on the chats for those. And our process to playbook is really just explaining the problem statement, and I will recap it very quickly. We then did a webinar. Okay, well, how do you go about building world-class playbooks? And then there's this session, which is, okay, I'm intrigued, I'm interested, but how do I go through that investment journey to build confidence in the approach? And it's likely that we'll do another one. And we did this at GRIDtalk Live in April, but we want to do a much more focused session on, okay, I've got the investment, but how do I actually go about implementing and adopting playbooks in my organization? And it's highly likely that this one won't just be me, it'll be a number of our clients talking about their experiences about how they implemented playbooks, what worked, what didn't work. So that's the playbook series. I'll just dive into this in a bit more detail so you can see it. So for those that are new to the problem, the core problem we focus Method Grid looking at is how do you reduce the cost of poor quality that comes from inconsistent ways of working. And the associated pain symptoms, I've just highlighted the red ones that most people we speak to will resonate with. And it's, yeah, they recognize that the way they do things is inconsistent. 2, they recognize that teams find it incredibly difficult and it's incredibly frustrating for them that they can't find the information they need when they need it, and they don't know who to speak to. And that often leads to 6, which is we have teams that are just constantly reinventing the wheel. And it also leads to 7, which is just staff taking an enormous amount of effort, personal effort and investment to work out how to get things done within the organization. So it takes an incredible amount of time for people to become effective. And in some cases that joining experience or that journey that they've gone on probably has impacted their view of the organization. So why does it happen? And there are a lot of reasons, but we had to boil it down to these 4 key aspects, which is fundamentally you have to provide clarity on the method, the process that you want people to follow. But you can have clarity of process, but it doesn't lead to compliance. And a lot of people have said, oh, actually, I've written all the process down, but I feel like it just lives on the shelf. It's not used. And everyone, I've kind of flagged this red, everyone has a compliance challenge. I just don't think people use that process. And I'm going to recap the compliance challenge in the next set of slides, just to recap on process to playbook. So that's the compliance challenge. The people capability. So it's very simple. It's kind of do people have the confidence to follow that process? What have we put in place? Can they go and speak to an expert? Can they find the training? Can they find the template that gives them the confidence to be able to give it a go? If people aren't confident, they will normally default to what they know or what they feel confident in doing. So if you want people to be consistent to your way of working, you're going to have to build their confidence in it. Now, 1, 2, and 3 are normally in your gift as a kind of leader to sort of work out how good they are implemented within your organization. But there'll always be a residual risk, and there'll always be audit, and there'll always be a set of standards and evidence and controls that are put in place to ensure that things are happening consistently. Now, the key point is this is making sure that teams are aware of what the standards are and what evidence is needed, but also if you are being audited or you are the team that are doing the assurance, they can find the information quickly and they're not sort of trawling through various different SharePoint sites to kind of find the information they need. So that's the kind of overall problem statement that Method Grid is focused on trying to solve. Now, just a quick recap, and this is really just focusing on the process to playbook challenge. I talked about the compliance challenge, and the last talk I talked about a new concept which we call organizational drift, which is we have a line which is, look, this is how we do stuff around here. It's kind of work imagined / prescribed. This is what we want people to do. And what happens when you add quality and time onto that is work as done does not match work as imagined or prescribed. And what you have is a drift problem, is that people don't follow the process, they can't find the process, and therefore what happens is that you create large volume of drift between how you imagine work is done and how it's actually done in delivery. Now, that's fine, but eventually what happens, especially in complex processes, that you're building this accumulation of things that are going wrong. And eventually the accumulations of sort of this non-compliance, non-conformance will lead to a kind of a critical failure event. It'll either be a massive impact to our schedule, a massive impact to kind of time or cost, or in the worst case, it can be an impact to health and safety and someone doesn't go home. So I think anyone who works in an organization, I think you will recognize that, yes, one of my weekly, daily challenges is reducing drift. Like, how can I get teams to be more consistent? Now, what we find is with the process solution, or it's kind of the cognitive load problem in the bottom left-hand corner there, which is, well, we've written it all down, and what's happened is, we've written, 50 standards. there's 200 templates, there's 40 different checklists, and it's all scattered across different SharePoint sites, locations, and sources of information. And what the staff have to do is basically create a cognitive memory of, okay, for me to be able to orchestrate and navigate that kind of end-to-end process, I've got to try and remember where everything is. And I think this is what causes the problem, which is eventually what you end up with is just that web of death, and people just get lost. And they only know about the information that they've been introduced to. And therefore what happens is it's very difficult for people to navigate complex processes, but also just keep up to date and remember where everything is. And so the cognitive load problem is one, and then we introduced the shelfware trap, which is sort of a result which kind of can influence how your organization culture evolves, which is you can write it all down and you've got process clarity, but there's a disconnect between process and delivery. And as a result, what you have is high drift. Now, organizations with high drift, obviously the natural defense is then to overinflate the kind of second line and third line of defense. So obviously the first line's failed, people aren't following the process consistently, therefore we need to put more checks and balances into the process to build confidence that it's been followed. And so what happens in most organizations with this problem is second line and third line become overinflated, and what that can result in is that you engineer you end up being an oil tanker, which is, it's very difficult to change, low speed of innovation. And if someone wants to improve a process or say introduce a new process, it's normally very restrictive because audit, assurance, and control functions are nervous by the fact that the first line isn't an effective line of defense. The other challenge that drives is kind of innovation and CI. So you'll see on the top graph, somebody will find a better way of doing something. The phrase we come up with is kind of, it's a flash innovation. Yes, it happened. Someone found a smart way of doing something, but we couldn't catch it. We didn't even know about it. Or even when we do catch it, we've then got to put it into the process. But then we're reliant on people in delivery being able to use that process and follow it. And if there's a disconnect between the process and delivery, then it's very difficult to kind of scale innovation. So that's the sort of key concepts, really. Yeah, most organizations do have a high drift problem. They're kind of really, the kind of crux of it is really the first line fails, and that's mainly due to the kind of cognitive load problem. But that makes it really difficult because the organization becomes quite a controlling, overbearing organization for people. Okay, so that's the concept of process to playbook. Very quickly, just quickly about how we solve that problem with Playbook. So what we recognized is, yes, there's very limited value in knowledge, process, information being separated from delivery. So what we said is, let's merge the knowledge management and project and task management into a single platform first. But what we also recognized is that organizations do not just want one playbook. They want different playbooks for different ways of delivering different services, different types of project. And therefore, what we decided to do is to make the platform sort of you have the ability to build your own playbooks rather than, you need our expertise or you need technology specialists to build it. It's very much that you can build your own playbooks within the platform. Two, we just keep it really simple. It's a grid-based structure, left to right, that you can orchestrate the process on. And we're not trying to sort of be the single solution. We recognize that you have to integrate with different solutions like SharePoint, 365, and common data environments as well. But I think 3 is the key bit, which is what we recognized is that for the playbook to be of value to the teams, that can you create a master version of it, clone it, and then make that the instance that you give to the team that's following that process or managing that project, and give them an instance that they can tailor and right size for that particular project, and then they can use that clone that cloned instance that's been tailored, and they can track delivery, upload evidence, and monitor compliance. And through that process, what we've enabled is actually teams become more vested in trying to improve ways of working, because the playbook is actually used in delivery. And that's critical, I think, because it's starting to scale the impacts of change and continuous improvement, because the playbook is actually a resource that adds value to the consultant, but also allows you to find a vehicle that you can push the changes through to them for. And then 4 is, obviously, when we shifted from just knowledge into delivery, we recognized that we had to build reporting to track progress and information. But I think the big piece of innovation and R&D that we're looking at is, okay, well, how can you use the intelligence from clones and other data sources like lessons learned to drive much more richer recommendations to people when they're using the playbook? And there will be, I think we're going to do a few talks which are in the deck later. There's one at the Consulting Growth Network, and there is our GRIDtalk live event in October, where we'll be sharing a bit more of an update on the future of AI within the platform. But broadly, that's how we solve the problem. So then we get onto the playbook investment. And what we recognized is, our kind of core focus on the approach is, whilst we want to help clients build a robust investment case, but we also recognize that you have to kind of foster and build confidence in the playbook approach, because essentially, yes, we can build an investment case, which is the numbers and the benefits, but also we have to kind of build confidence that this new approach is actually going to deliver value to the organization. And whilst you kind of say the organization, it's really building the individual's confidence. If you're the owner of a function, or if you're responsible for a part of the business, it's building their confidence that the playbook approach is a way of helping them solve their problems. Now, what we want to do, and I think what we designed our sales process to basically help clients navigate that journey. So if you've never had any sessions with MethodGrid before, this is broadly the journey. But what we recognize very early on is, you could say that most organizations in a kind of SaaS business, in a sales organization, will run a discovery session, they will demo the product. I'll come on to prototype. They'll prototype and they'll build the proposal. And once the proposal's done, they'll wait. And all they're waiting for is a yes answer, or yes or no. And what we wanted to think about, was actually, if we think about the end-to-end experience that a client goes through, actually we are just the start of the process. But actually what we need to ensure is that we are designing assets that support them in helping them get through what is quite a difficult challenge, especially in the last couple of years, about getting investment into improving ways of working. So I'll just recap on this. So 1, we'll do a quick discovery call, and that is really working out whether the playbook approach and the problem statement is one that you want to take forward, or it's aligned with the organization. The demo is very quick and says, look, this is what the product is, this is how it works. What we recognized, which we introduced recently, was the prototype session. We wanted to, rather than having the interested party trying to imagine what the playbook would look like in their particular use case, or their particular with their particular problem statement, was because building playbooks is very easy for organizations. We added a kind of prototype where we spend a day working with the team on, okay, well, here's your process. Can we try and work out how that would look and feel as a playbook? And the reason we do that is it's twofold. The prototype session is twofold. We've got confidence, i.e. MethodGrid, that we are a good solution fit and we know the problem that we're trying to solve. But also the output of that is the individual who's got the problem should have confidence that, yes, actually, that would solve my problem, or I know what problem it solves. From that, we kind of develop a kind of outline proposal. And we talk about that in the prototype session, about what options are available, but very much try to then shape what that initial proposal would look like. What we've also recognized is, once we've kind of co-designed that proposal, it's getting to the business case. There's an internal kind of, oh, well, I need to now go and try and persuade people to invest in this problem. And there's a few assets that we've built, which I'll show you in a second, which is, first of all, and it's proved really successful, probably in the larger organizations, which is doing a baseline survey, asking people what they currently think about the resources, the information, the knowledge that is available for them in executing projects. And the reason the baseline survey is really useful is it gives us the kind of quantitative and qualitative data that we can use for, before we start this project, this is what people used to say about ways of working. Now that we've introduced and adopted playbooks, we can rerun that survey and see if there's a shift from, well, I used to think it was it's terrible. We had no templates, we had no information, we kind of made it up as we went along, to actually know, I've got assets, I've got information, and I've got a playbook that helps me. It's kind of, you can use that to kind of evidence the value of the playbook approach. What we've also done this year is build our benefits framework, which I'll come on to and show you how that works. But very much in the prototype session, what we're trying to work on is, well, we know that the application of method grid and using playbooks delivers and derives these benefits. And what we've built is a very simple benefits framework with a number of different benefits, but also with a number of KPIs, and a tool there to try and help you orchestrate your business case. But then we kind of get into 6, which is the kind of investment confidence. So yes, okay, I've got the paper, it looks logical, but do I believe it? And what you have to try and do is get the kind of sponsor engagement and buy-in to get that. And what we found that works really well in even developing our proposals is a number of video assets that kind of bring it to life. Not only because we've built a prototype, so there is something there that you can share with people that doesn't look just like a stranger playbook, it looks like a real playbook that solves your particular problem. And we just bring that to life and align it with why is it important, why we adopting playbooks, and how that aligns with the strategic goals of the organization. We find that type of engagement, that type of video is quite good in getting you what you need, is someone that's prepared to put their name on the block and say, yes, I will support and sponsor that. Now, if you get the sponsorship, then it's into due diligence, and there's a whole set of, I didn't want to put it on there, but there's a whole set of procurement and supplier, IT, information security assessments that have to go on, but eventually you will get the investment approval. And when it comes to implementation, and I think for a number of clients, when we start the implementation, we start using the method grid as the way that we implement playbook projects, as we have an implementation playbook. So from day one, you're already starting to use method grid on and seeing how you actually use it to implement services and projects. So that, I'd say that's broadly the journey. All paths are fairly unique, but broadly that's the main shape. And what we're trying to do as an organization is to make sure that we don't just think that we stop at 5. We have to be able to support 6. Oh, I should have named them, get the numbers right. All the way through the process and support you with that and build assets that help you do that. Yeah, so the baseline survey is a set of questions that we've used, and it was we used the AQPC guidance because they did a really good survey on how much time people are wasting trying to find the information they need, and they kind of equated that on average that each knowledge worker is spending probably about 8 hours a week trying to find information, repeat themselves, or redo work that they reinvent in the wheel time. And so what we wanted to design is a survey that tried to ask those key questions to work out how much time actually people are wasting on either under delegation or just trying to find the information they need, but also get the qualitative information from them about, well, how do you actually feel? What was your joining experience like? How long did it take you before you felt that you were, fully indoctrinated and you knew your ways of working? And how would you rate the assets that we have, or our process information? What would you give it out of 10? 10 being world class, and that is the kind of key measures that you can use that will help you on your kind of benefits journey. Now, the benefits framework is, we focus on shareholder value. And there are sort of 4 key categories. There's one around obviously revenue growth, improving your margin, improving staff productivity, but also then 4 around just delivery excellence and confidence in that. There are obviously kind of lead indicators and indicators that have a kind of direct financial result. And what we've developed and designed in the back end of this, and this is what we tend to do in the prototype session, is sit down and work through, after we prototype the playbook, is to then work out, okay, well, which benefits are actually going to be the key ones that we need to focus on. And we're not saying that you have to align to all of the benefits. That would probably be too much for the investment. It's about pick the kind of 4 to 5 key benefits for the investment, and making sure that we align those to the kind of goals and pain points the organization has. I mean, there are, I'd say, just from my experience, the most attractive pain point is normally around like cost of poor quality. If you can calculate cost of poor quality, like how much money have we lost from either we've sold work and we didn't deliver it to cost, either margin, we didn't deliver it in time and the margin was wrong, or we delivered work, we got it completely wrong and it resulted in liquidated damages and penalties and claims. Those tend to be the more emotive benefits that organizations really want to root out, because they are normally the high cost. So I'd say if I was looking at this, it's always trying to say, actually, cost of poor quality, if you can calculate it or you can gather evidence about it, is a very good measure. But obviously, naturally, there's also just making sure, if you can calculate it, what's the average amount of time people in this organization are wasting just trying to follow process and find the information they need when they need it. What we've also done with this framework is then produce a benefits calculator, which takes each of these points. So if we pick 4 or 5, then there are a set of KPIs and a set of measures that we can use to help you develop and design and build that investment case for the Playbook project. I've got a few questions. Yeah, Jeremy, good question. Just on the business case, have you any thoughts about how you put a value, usually ROI, on the consistency and efficiency that MethodGrid assists? I think, I think normally we tend to say, look, with the kind of level of investment that you have to make in a Playbook project, it's normally kind of 6 to sort of 8 times value that we deliver. And it's very simple. I mean, you could just do a base calculation on how much time and effort spent for people trying to find information and saying, well, look, we don't have to save 8 hours. We could literally save 4 hours a week of every employee that's involved in projects, which tends to be quite a high number in terms of the initial one. But I find that our kind of financial directors are not really that confident in that one. They're much more receptive to, actually, if we can reduce claims and if we can reduce cost of poor quality, that tends to be a much more emotive buy from the kind of financial director colleagues. So that's just the kind of frameworks and the resources that we put in place to help clients with navigating that investment journey. I kind of wanted to talk about the approach, really, and probably understand what it actually takes. What is that end-to-end investment journey? So if I just kind of rephrase what we're trying to do. So normally when we're trying to build your Playbook projects, it's basically how we're going to work out how we codify services and put them into Playbooks. And what we're trying to do is obviously build translate process and build more confidence in compliance by using Playbooks. We also want to integrate knowledge and delivery. So it's really clear for people, look, this is what you need to do and this is how you do it. And having that side by side. But more recently, and I'll talk about it at the end of the session, is a lot more now in terms of Playbook build is about learning and confidence. Is, okay, I've put the knowledge in there, that's great, but actually how can I build the individual's confidence in how to do it? And that's driven a lot of what we've developed in the platform recently about the ability to integrate e-learning and training resources directly into the Playbook. Now, the playbook development approach is, naturally you will demo and prototype it. Like I said before, it's about really working out and trying to probably generate pull demand. Is this a good fit to the problem, and is there interest that it is a good fit? Then you get into the proposal, and it's kind of the time, effort, and resources and approval for that investment. Then you get into the build. You're going to do a few design workshops. You're then going to focus on the content development and build of that playbook. The kind of optional one is, it may be like the first iteration doesn't include it, but the other bit now is that we do the learning enablement. So adding video explainers, adding e-learning courses into the playbook to build a kind of fully immersive experience. The next stage is pilot, and what we found really successful is that on that journey is you're going to want to find early adopters and try and get feedback as fast as you possibly can. And the reason that pilot is useful is, what we're also trying to use that pilot for is to generate and build more awareness and momentum about the use of playbooks within the organization. But you will pilot it, and you'll find very quickly that what you thought in build, in reality, what teams need is somewhat slightly different. And you might need to iterate and change and kind of refine that playbook based on feedback. But in that stage, you can then also work out, okay, well, how are we going to deploy this playbook? By region, by function, by project, or portfolio? Depending on the size and scale of that organization, it can determine really what the rollout plan approach is. But then you move into adoption, which is really sort of making sure that people are aware, the kind of awareness and desire, they have the sort of training and the knowledge and the ability to use it, and also just making sure that the engagement, they are introduced to Method Grid as part of a way of working, not as a sort of, this is just a tool that we use. This is how we deliver services in the organization. And then once you've got into adoption, post-adoption, you then move into kind of the improvement phase. And it's kind of, okay, well, you need to recognize as part of your investment that yes, there may be potentially new roles that are required in the organization to take ownership for playbooks, but also, which a number of our clients do, is that kind of playbook increment in running quarterly improvement projects, gathering all the feedback from different users on how it's been used on different projects, and actually managing that as a release for a new version of the playbook. So there's actually, when you think about the overall investment, yes, there's the investment that you need in terms of building playbooks and taking them through that process, but you also need to have consideration of the wider impacts of the operating model that needs to be able to support it, because it potentially there could be either a refactor or change of roles and responsibilities to ensure that your intellectual capital that you've codified into a playbook is actually maintained and managed. Now, that's the sort of generic one. What I want to sort of also talk about here was just the roadmap for an enterprise client, and I know a few of you are on this journey, and so I just wanted to talk you through it. So in some cases, when you're a large organization, what you're eventually potentially trying to do, and we've done a few of these, which is there's an initial playbook. It was done as a kind of initial proof of value into the concept of it being able to add value to the organization. So there's kind of what we call an early adopter playbook, the initial pilot and proof of value of the playbook approach, because what we do recognize is that the playbook approach is a shift in something that people aren't used to. So I think in terms of building that investor confidence or leadership confidence, that this just isn't another kind of failed IT solution that didn't deliver on its benefits, is, and a few people are a bit nervous about that. It's how you build that leadership confidence. So in some cases it may start where you just do an initial playbook for a real focused use case problem or problem. The trick we've learned that works really well is, whilst you've got that pilot investment, you then basically treat that pilot as the internal case study. For a large organization, you are saying, look, we've done this, it was really successful, it's now deployed on this project. And what you're raising within the organization is awareness of the playbook approach, because they might not be aware of who Method Grid are. And once you start to share that case study, you're raising awareness, and you will potentially start to behave like a method grid salesman, which is you then start to demo and prototype that playbook internally to build more awareness. And what you're trying to do is to go to leadership and say, actually, guys, we've done this successful pilot, and what we've identified is that there are other areas that are interested in adopting and using playbooks to help them with their processes, because it won't just be projects that have this problem. Most organizations have a kind of high drift problem when it comes to executing processes, so that there will be other areas that need support. But the trick here is, by building this awareness, what you're creating is a different type of demand. Leaders, I think, would say, if I find that I've got loads of people coming to me saying, I want to do this, and it's more pull demand rather than push demand. If you've got pull demand, it's significantly more valuable and less risky if you've got 4 or 5 stakeholders across the business saying we want to codify our process in playbooks. The kind of next bit of that journey, once you've got that leadership engagement, you initially would say, okay, we've done a pilot playbook, and what we have seen here is there's a broader investment in playbooks that we want to make. And what you've identified through that approach is, yes, there are some priority playbooks that we've managed to gather from early adopters, people that are really interested in the approach. And we've talked about this a few times at our events, that focusing on the kind of innovators, early adopter people that are really good at accepting change, they will naturally say, actually, do you know what, I want to put my process into playbook. And that's kind of your first cohort. And that pull demand really starts to build investment confidence in the leadership team. Because if you've got 5 or 10 people saying we want to do this, then from a leader, it's the kind of easy way out. So, well, look, actually, I think that they're motivated to drive it and implement it. So actually it makes my life a bit easier. But also you have that, use method grid as a way of trying to manage the playbook. I'll come on to that in a bit more detail about how you manage that process, but you're going to find that loads of people want to build playbooks, but what you have to put in is a process to control, well, who's the priority, what's the risk associated with it, and what's the end value of us being able to build that playbook. And this is what we put in place. Is it tends to be, and it's probably build it as a playbook, but it's the kind of playbook roadmap backlog that you are going to get a number of teams that are interested in wanting to progress different playbooks. And what we advise here is, look, don't use your mandate. If you've got a mandate to implement playbooks, great, but still try and follow the kind of sales-based approach, which is, still, if the team is interested in a playbook and doesn't know much about playbooks, still treat them like a demo and a prototype to see if the playbook is a good fit for their process. And then that allows you to say, okay, yep, you're bought in, and they're really keen to take it forward. And then you can give them a proposal, take it through build, pilot, and adoption, and manage that process. But the key bit is, I haven't just assumed just because one playbook's worked for one division or one function or one team that it will work for everyone. I still want to treat every single one as an individual, but because I want them bought into and pull me through the process of implementing and adopting it. And that kind of journey sort of concludes is, once you've kind of got those priority playbook projects implemented, it sort of then leads you to the next question, which is, okay, actually what we can see here is the use of playbooks is much broader than we originally thought. And this really, that kind of key question in the middle is kind of strategic versus operational capability. Actually, at that point, it says, well, actually, we can't just see playbooks as a kind of transactional affair. What we're looking for is to make this a sort of strategic part of our business. And that's where it tends to, at that point, that becomes more strategic investment, which is actually, we do see a broader use of playbooks across the business, but therefore that recognizes that actually we have to think about this as a capability implementation, not just about putting a process into a playbook, because there are things that need to be put in place, like the operating model about who has decision rights about how playbooks are updated and managed and changed and released. Is there now a need that we need to build training rather than just it being led by teams and super users. Actually, we might need to build some e-learning courses that teach people how to use playbooks in delivery, right up to, sort of put it at the end there, which is actually what does it mean to be a playbook owner in the organization, and who has, who takes ownership for running playbook improvement projects and how that works. So the whole set now of, okay, actually, whilst we've had a few pilots and we've built a few playbooks, there's a shift at some point where it says, actually, now we need to recognize it as a broader capability of the business, or it's significantly helping us uplift strategic capabilities that we have, and therefore we need to think about it as a more holistic approach to deliver the outcome. There's a few things, obviously, we help clients with on that journey, which is obviously we design a capability-based approach to implementing Method Grid, but also we recently sort of implemented the change management playbook, which is also about how you create that desire, knowledge, and ability that helps you with much more larger scale rollouts and deployments across the business. But essentially, what we're trying to plot and navigate on this investment journey is, well, I started off as an initial pilot. How do I get it all the way through to it? Yes, no, it's a strategic capability that we go through. So just in summary, for the playbook investment, what we recognized was, obviously, it's about helping you build the investment case, but also building investment confidence in the playbook approach. We want to design, we've designed our approach about helping you facilitate that end-to-end journey. It's not just about us running a few workshops and a few calls with you. What we're trying to do is really help you go all the way through that loop so that you can get the investment in for your project. And we've built a number of kind of resources and assets around the benefits framework to help you to do that. But also we recognize that it might not be just be done in one project. And there is a journey that we have to go on about how we successfully help organizations adopt and implement playbooks as a strategic way of operating processes within the organization. I think that concludes the session. So thank you for taking the time to listen. So yeah, I'll open the floor to any questions that you have just about the playbook approach or the investment. Please feel, if you've got any questions, just drop them either in the chat or use the question section. Jeremy, what's that? What's describe a relevant value map behind this? Oh, I think it's Tom's answer. Just reading that. So yeah, the benefits calculator, we've built a number of different calculations that help clients with it. So ideally, very quickly, we can key in the numbers and it derive a kind of very quick ROI assessment for helping structure the business case. Cool. No questions for this session. Just to go through a few things. Just a few bits of news and updates from us. We launched the Method Grid Academy service in February, and we're just delighted first, and just to make everyone aware, we launched the first e-learning training course, which is now available in Pace Digital. Just as part of kind of a way raising awareness with this as a kind of our partnership with Network Rail, just want to make sure everyone's aware that whoever works in the rail sector, that e-learning course is now available, and there's plans for more in the future. Also delighted to announce that we were made APM finalist for Technology Project of the Year with Network Rail. And also, like I mentioned before, we are going to be at the Consultancy Growth Network annual summit, which is a real good session focused on the use of AI. And I think in the bottom left-hand corner, we've also been nominated for the Lloyds Bank and kind of Business Excellence Award. So for those that don't follow us, please do follow us on LinkedIn, because it'll keep you integrated with all our news and events that we do. We'll send this pack out, but also just other resources that are available there to help you. So there is information that you can access Pace Digital. and supporting case studies, and also the white paper that we built for building world-class playbooks, which I think Tom's put in the chat already. Just to finalize this session, so obviously we've got GRIDtalk live, which is planned for October. So this session will be it's a face-to-face session, and it'll be hosted in Bath, and it's a good lineup for this year. So if you're interested and want to come along to our session on mainly focused on the kind of roadmap and the strategic roadmap for the product, is the sort of core focus for October's event. So if you're interested, please reach out and contact me and we'll get you invited. And then just to finalize, the next session we're going to do is much more focused on, okay, well, I can see you've got a playbook which is stages, but okay, how would actually I start to build a suite of agile, or how do I use the playbook concept for agile project delivery? Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this event, and yeah, hopefully see you on September the 24th for the next session. And yeah, please let me know if you'd like to come along to October's strategic session on the roadmap for the product. Take care, everyone. Have a great week.